Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show. As they said, I am David Duarte, and this is Culture Before Content, my favorite part of the week, created from the belief that what happens in the classroom truly works when culture comes first. This podcast is brought to you by Music for All and presented by Yamaha, where our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. And I say this all the time, but I know we all do that every single day. Hopefully starting tomorrow. Happy Monday. Oh, wait, some of you are on spring break. Not fair. I still got like 3 weeks to go. Anyway, this podcast is live most Sundays during the school year, just like today. And you can watch it live or later on video or listen to it in audio format. But if you want to join us live, you have two options. First, just go to the Music for All on Facebook, find the events tab. It's down there on the right somewhere. You'll find it. Typically posted on Saturdays, and mark yourselves as interested or going. I always change it to going because I figure I'm coming. Who knows? And then second, you can also watch it on YouTube, which is super easy to find. Just find the Music for All channel and then click on the live tab and you will see the current week's podcast. It is great. But when you join us live, the chat's open for questions, ideas, and real-time convo. And if you're watching now, feel free to jump in and say hello. Sometimes we have people say hello, say hello. If you prefer audio, you can find the most amazing audio broadcast each week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Just look for it and you will find it. But regardless, you can find every episode, audio or video, at musicforall.org/podcast. Hey, I made it through the intro. I love that. It's my favorite part. All right. This week, I'm super excited. There's a little bit of my heart coming in this interview today. So, Dr. Shane Colquhoun is an assistant professor of music technology and contemporary music styles at Alabama State University. He teaches courses in music technology, contemporary music, and music education. He is a Grammy-nominated educator and holds a PhD in music education, a Master of Education in Music, and a Master of Education in Higher Education Administration. That's a mouthful. From Auburn University, plus a BA in Music Technology and Business from Bethune-Cookman University. His research focuses on popular music education, music technology, and increasing access. This is great. Increasing access for students outside traditional school ensembles. He has published in major music education journals and holds leadership roles in NAFME and the Association for Popular Music Education. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Shane Colquhoun.
Greetings. How you doing, David?
I am doing well. First off, it's selection Sunday, so I kind of snuck that before we got up here. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, I'm very sad Auburn didn't get in.
Yeah, sorry about that. But the War Eagles go. I love me my mascots, as you have come to find out. But
yeah,
before we go on, by the way, like I finally am so excited. I got all that out of my mouth for all of your degrees. You have more degrees than like I have like years of life. That's great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I know we're going to get in this topic of music education outside the box, so to speak. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little about your career and who you are?
Well, I currently serve, as you said, as the assistant professor of music technology and contemporary music styles at Alabama State University. Before then, I was a high school band director and general music teacher. I taught at a small high school right outside of Auburn called Lochapoka High School. My heart is still there in a lot of ways. I feel like I became the person I am at that place. Before then, I would, just a normal band track. You start band in 6th grade and you go through the paces. And along the way, I picked up rapping and producing. And although I have always loved music, I haven't always felt as though the music I loved was always represented in the class. So that eventually, once I figured it out, became kind of my calling card and what I teach and preach every chance I get. So, I'm sure a lot of my story will come out in this conversation.
Well, I got two questions. First off, because I think this is one of my personal things. So I have like a weird track. I've taught at a lot of schools. I've taught in 3 separate states, taught in the West, I've taught in the South, I've taught in the Midwest. I hit all the bases. But first off, tell everyone out there that general music is amazing when you're a band teacher. Once you get started and going, I always feel like some of us get scared of general music. And then once we all start it, it's like those kids just eat and breathe music once you give it to them.
I will one up you on that one. I agree. But if you're doing it correctly as a band director, it will build your program.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. That's not really my main focus. Is I'll tell you a little bit about my story to get to your
Okay.
story. So, I retired from Arizona, moved out to Tennessee, had a tornado or two, and then I moved out. I know you got. We'll talk about those. I'm kidding. We're not going to talk about their tornadoes. And then I decided I really wanted to be because I hit COVID, and that was my opportunity to move out here to the Pacific Northwest, which is just a beautiful part of the country. And I moved out here, and the first thing that I was talking to my principal about when I moved out here was we need to offer classes to people that are not in band, choir, and orchestra. Because as you said, I come from a family of guitar players and singers, and like the music that's like popular amongst the masses isn't
Hmm.
necessarily the music that reaches everyone. So I proposed a music production class, and they gave it to me back in the day. And so that was my first journey into going outside of the the traditional band world. Or I've taught band, choir, orchestra. I've taught them all, and jazz
Awesome.
music. But then I started teaching that music production, and just like I say for the general music, my world came alive. I started finding so many incredible musicians at my own school. And then I thought to myself, I bet this is everywhere. So that's where I wanted to start this conversation is like, tell us a little bit about your beliefs and what you've been doing. And let's talk about servicing students outside of the traditional field.
Well, you would hope it is everywhere. And kudos to you for stepping out on the ledge and going to your principal and asking for these other classes. I guess we're still in a space, unfortunately, where I have to kind of say, guys, I don't hate band, choir, and orchestra. I love, I love band, choir, and orchestra. I believe that our traditional systems serve a purpose, have a place, and need to continue. But my argument and the analogy I always use is, imagine if you had a school with 100 kids, and when they got to the school, we said only 20 of them were going to get math. That's essentially what we do in music. For whatever reason, most schools, the other 80%, most schools serve 20% of the students through our bands, choirs, and orchestra, which leave out a ton of students who have different musical backgrounds, different musical interests, who are musical but never actually have the opportunity to do music in the formal setting. So I think that's just the bulk of the work of how do we do this? How do we get more teachers involved? How do we get more music educators who've come up through that traditional track? Um, might be a hard word when I say interested in understanding that this is a necessity, or it's important that we have these offerings and these opportunities.
Yeah, can I add to that? Because I,
Sure.
as budget cuts are everywhere. Declining enrollment is everywhere. I mean, I've been reading. My home is Arizona. I've been reading all the school closures lately, and some of the things that I always been worried about, which what started the process with my principal was we're if we as music educators are going to survive, we have to change with the times. Band, choir, and orchestra were not always what was out there. And there are schools up here that don't have choir. And I've
Uh-huh.
seen it happen once. And as a former administrator, I will flat out tell you, if the numbers aren't there, there is a shot that it can get cut. Um,
Absolutely. And that's the conversation. Like it's hard to cut something that's thriving where kids are participating. So the more that we can do to add value to our schools and reach and teach more kids is the better it is for us, our profession, and the school in general.
And the other thing too is like, if I always thought about this too, because I'm now in a situation where I actually get to teach the kids in fifth grade as they come to me
Hmm.
in I'm the high school, but I still get to teach the kids in the fifth grade. And so there's creating that connection is, that's a gift.
Yeah,
Usually you as the high school person, you're just hoping that it falls your way. But I think to myself, not every kid wants to do band, not every kid wants to do choir, and not
yeah.
every kid wants to do orchestra, but they love music. I mean, how many times have you said, or have you met I love music, but I'm not really a player. And so, you know, where did your passion start and how does it shape who you are now?
I think my experience pretty much has shaped everything. But what happened for me in a very real way, about six, 6 or 7 years into my teaching career, although I had been seeing success when I got to my Lochapoka High School, there were only 7 kids in the band. I built the program to about 75 kids, which 75 is still not a great deal of students, but when you look at the fact that we only had 220 kids, grades 6 to 12, in the entire school, having 75 kids in the band is an astronomical number, and it's over that 20% or that 10% margin that they tell you to go get. But what I found was, although the program was thriving and although the program was moving outside of marching band, which they really enjoyed, there was just a very big disconnect after marching band season. Um, I didn't enjoy it. They didn't enjoy it because, as soon as marching band's over, you got to get your winter concert, and then when winter concert, you got to prepare for MPA, and then MPA, you got to prepare for solo and ensemble, and then spring concert where you may play a funsy onesie popular music Disney piece. But I found that there was a disconnect, and one of the things that changed my complete view on everything was one day, one of my students, Michelle Allen, I'll never forget it. She had brought in a song by The Weeknd that she had wrote out on paper. And she was like, "Hey, Dr. Calhoun, I want to know if we can play that." I was Mr. Calhoun at the time. And I wrote it for the whole band. And just like that, like the whole vibe of the program changed. Now the students became more interested. The students felt like they had input. That was the exact time where I began this schedule of red day, white days. So on white days, we would do traditional band stuff. We'll get ready for MPA. But on red days, it was like choose your own adventure. Oh, you want to produce? Okay, go work on this computer. Oh, you want to learn piano? Go learn over here. You want to learn drum set? Go over here. And that moment was when that all switched for me, and it became more of okay, what are you interested in? How can I bring that into the classroom?
I think what you've hit head on. I take my little notes while y'all
Please.
speak, and I'm like, and here's my class. Heaven forbid a student becomes engaged in something of their own interest, and I think sometimes
That part.
we as I can't even say the word. We as music educators forget that we can do things outside of the box, and I think
That
that
part.
maybe. And I think that's what this is like learning to think outside the box. Cause this goes back to my admin days of how many times have I walked into a classroom and the teacher is teaching the music to the kids, but there's really no input coming from the kids. And we wonder as music educators, why are kids leaving? Why are kids departing? And to me, that engagement is the whole thing. So I want to focus, and start maybe that conversation of what
David, I
engagement
have a
looks
thought
like
for you
to
of that. Sorry to cut you off on there, but
No,
today I was
please do.
listening to your episode with Teresa, good friend, Pastor Baton podcast. And one of the thoughts that hit me in that conversation when you were about to ask me, how do we engage? I would argue most music teachers do not know the musical interest of their students outside of the repertoire.
There's no argument.
From you. But I would argue that. Like I would say that, and if we're really truly being honest, like I mean, that was my experience. The only one of my high school, middle school, and college directors that I've had in my career that I think actually knew was my college band director, Mr. Wells. And he knew because one day he walked into the computer lab and I was in there making a beat and I said, "Hey, you want to listen?" And he listened. And ever since that day, he called me big time. So I don't think anybody else knew. And I think that's the case that we perpetuate, that we don't get to know our students as musicians, as we don't get to know them as musicians through their own interests.
I'm typing my notes. Apparently,
Okay.
I cannot type and not look at my fingers because I typed. I don't even know what that word was that I typed. So I'm typing the word student interest because I think I want to center around that because I'm not saying every band director stop doing. I'm not trying to say change your world. What I'm trying to say is, I'm a reflection artist. An idea pops in my head, and then I want to focus on it. I want to see how I can incorporate some of those things because what have I learned? Something is going to make the space better. And so, I mean, engagement, student interest, student input, how do we find those things? And I think, and I've seen a lot of interest in the modern ensembles in schools across the country.
Modern band.
And,
yeah.
Yeah. And I think to myself, how do we get started? Because I think first, as I'm looking at, like I said, declining enrollment, classes being made, worrying about budget cuts, worrying about, things. What are some of the things that you can say to people that, hey, think about this, or this is what it took to put together that ensemble or offer that in schools?
Okay. Um, I think the whole process starts with asking questions. And I mean tough questions, hard questions. Like one of my things that I've said a million times. Um, you know, when I'm building out classes or I'm thinking what to offer, who are my students? What do they know? What do they want to know? What do they need to know? Great starting point. So having surveys, genuinely just asking kids in your ensemble, hey, what would you like to learn about music? Maybe creating an all call for the school. Hey, what would you like to learn about music? You asking the question to your administration, can I teach? Although I believe in modern band, I think modern band is phenomenal. I work with Music Will. I go to the Modern Band Summit. I don't think there's one answer. And I don't think modern band is the answer for every school. It may be a recording tech class, it may be a mariachi ensemble, but you don't find that information unless you ask. It would be very easy for us to decide, hey, I'm going to wake up this morning and I'm going to start a a gamelan ensemble or whatever. But like, if you never ask the students or the constituents in your school, you're basically replicating the model we already have, where it's all the decision starts with us, the teacher.
It's funny. I'm just gonna make you laugh, but thinking about the gamelan, I used to live next to the Music Instrument Museum in Phoenix, and so I would go play the gamelan all the time. Like that thing is loud, and I can just think how amazingly expensive that thing would be to put together. But um, so here's I'm trying to frame it in terms of like creating understanding. So like talk about the classes that you teach at Alabama State. And maybe we could, because one of the things that I've learned is going to visit and watch these things is what gives me the idea. So, like if you haven't seen something to know how to teach it, it starts somewhere.
Gotcha.
And so, what do those classes look like at the university level for you?
So at the university level, we have a unique advantage where we have kids that are majoring in music, so their world uh, revolves around music. One of the things that I do in all of my classes, even in my intro to music theory class, fundamentals, which is the prep for theory one, I ask a question at the beginning of every class: What would you like to learn from this class or in music? So I think the best example of what it looks like, our pop ensemble. We started a pop ensemble at Alabama State 3 years ago, and it is doing amazing. The kids are creating at a very high level. So first thing in the class every semester, what do you want to do? What type of music do you want to play? So for some, it may be songwriting. For some, it may be music production. For some, it may be the modern band performance atmosphere and going through the cover song thing. So once I get the interest of the students, I build out the class from there. Now, I think that sounds, when I just say ask questions and do, that sounds a little bit hard for a person that has no experience. Like if you've never played a guitar or bass or drums, like how do you build this out? So I think once you start with asking the students what they're interested in, finding ways to incorporate their interests naturally is a common step. So, for instance, if I have a winter concert and I know that Timmy is a DJ, what would it hurt to have Timmy open up the concert playing a DJ set 10 minutes before the concert? Or if I know that there are a group of kids, like for instance, at Alabama State, we have some of our Kenyan students, they have a group called Oonts and Friends, which is an Afro house DJ group where they play at live events around campus. If I know that they have this talent, it would be behooving of me to let them play in the lobby on a Thursday, on a random Thursday. Let them open up a concert. Finding ways, if you cannot find ways to do it as a class, find ways to incorporate their ideas and their music abilities into your program.
That's fan. What I was thinking. I don't know if Patrick, if you popped up some of those pictures back up, because there were some of the pictures of your kids around in a circle and a guitar, and I was wondering if you could talk about that picture. That was it was the one where you had the group, or
Yeah.
talk about that group. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Thank you,
This is
Patrick.
this is a great example of how it lives. So in this picture, this is actually after a professional development that I did. I do some coaching for Music Will, and we did a modern band 101 teaser. So if you look immediately in the picture to my left, those are two band directors currently, Michael
Mm.
Floyd and Myron Smith. They are band directors right now. So they came to learn about what it looks like to incorporate a modern band. Behind me, that's one of my Kenyan students who's a graduate student. To his right is a graduate student from Auburn University who is also interested in learning about modern bands. So he went to the Modern Band Summit and he came as a coach that day because that day we had a popular music retreat. So he came in to work with the students, the high school students that came to the camp. And then you ask, how do I incorporate this in my school? Well, the female student and the two students to her right, those are music ed majors. And here they are at the professional development learning about modern bands. So our approach has been, in addition to starting the popular music ensemble and having the technique, having the technology class, is how can we incorporate these innovative practices into all of our music ed curricular. My music ed coordinator, Dr. Green, he is phenomenal. Any chance he gets, he says all music is important and all music belongs in schools. And he works very well with me and helping me filter a lot of my ideas and streamlining these ideas. So now, like throughout our curriculum, from the day they step on campus into intro to music education to when they leave for internship, there are alternative approaches in the curriculum that either I teach or he'll pick my brain and he teaches.
Well, I was thinking to myself because, I started my career at a high school teaching high school band. And then I always worried, and because jazz band was the outside of the box thing at the time.
Yeah.
And so I laugh because it's like, oh, we need bass players. We need guitar players. We need, all these instruments, or, I need more sax players. What I found out, and my personal experience says, is if the kid is a level of musician, hand them the instrument and they will figure it out at that same level of whatever they are. So if you have a great
Absolutely.
oboe player and you hand them a bass guitar, and I'm speaking from experience, you get a bass player that can play just as well as they did on that oboe. And so it just takes time to transfer. So I was thinking in terms of the modern band. So, here's a comment from Ricardo. I teach mariachi. I have 31 freshmen in the class. 85% want to learn how to play corridors, but it's not in the curriculum. How can I tie that together without getting away from the curriculum?
I would be interested to know, Ricardo, thank you for your question. When you say it doesn't tie to the curriculum, because I would argue if there's an interest there, is it a unit that you could build in? Is it an after school class? So I think, and a lot of times when we talk about these ideas of alternative approaches to music education, the curriculum is usually the thing that stops a lot of people where they say, how do we do it? But like, I think we're all professionals. Like, how can we find ways to tie the curriculum to what you would do on the corridors? Like, I think playing in, performing, connecting, responding, those are the national standards. What does that look like on this particular instrument or in this setting? I don't think it changes, or there's a way to move away from it as much as we try to build that wall. So I would be really interested to learn more about when you say it's not in the curriculum. What does that mean?
Just my interpretation is, a lot of times what I've come across as administrator again is we get so tied to what it says on paper that we don't sometimes feel like that we get the freedom to do what's off the paper, when truthfully you're meeting most of the standards. But here he says, I give them the tools and techniques, but that's all they want to play. Getting them to play mariachi is pulling teeth.
Sounds like classical music. No, I say that jokingly. I say that very jokingly. I give them the tools and techniques, but that's all they want to play. Getting them to play mariachi is pulling teeth. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and maybe this comes down to, and maybe Ricardo, you can expand on some of this. Maybe it comes down to like the environment of the classroom and what the kids want to do, and maybe giving them some more examples. And to me, like for me, and I know for Ricardo, mariachi is a passion of mine personally, and that's one of the things of we've talked about starting. You start that anywhere. But just getting the kids to go outside of their box. Sometimes we offer classes in a box that we're not, we offer the curriculum, but then we got to get the kid to actually come to the curriculum sometimes. Like you say, modern band, that, that one I don't know if it's easier, but I just think it's easier to be relevant to the what's going on.
Yeah, I think I would, Ricardo. I would really love to talk more about this, because my question is, well, who picked out the mariachi? Why was that the decision of the offering? Is there something else that you can offer? And I'll give you a good example. Last semester, I had a group in music technology that just for some odd reason there was just a very big disconnect.
Hmm.
And what the to not give the whole story, one of the things I found is that you would think kids would be very excited about making beats and learning how to use technology instruments. But what if they just not? What if they're just not interested in it? Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying. So it's interesting to me as the educator and as the musician, but for them, it what if this wasn't their jam? So what it made me do, one, it made me rethink my approach to teaching. How can I strip this down to a level where they can understand and get the content, because you need this credit. Like you can't graduate without my intro to music tech class. But what can I do to strip this down to your level to get you the content, but then also kind of fusing some of your ideas. By the end of the class, the kids were doing these social media projects where they created these days in the lives video, where you had to follow them around with the days and they were producing the music, and it ended up going very well. But it took me stripping back my approach to it and how I thought, just because it's cool to me doesn't necessarily mean that it would be cool to them.
Yeah, and I know Ricardo's expanded because he says in the music culture, most parents want the kids to play corridos, especially if they play guitar. So,
Okay.
and I think that's like kind of like the same thing. And Ricardo, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's that whole same thing that we do in contraband. You know, I like to play, and it goes, and it's the whole traditional band versus, I guess, traditional band versus I hate these words because they're not how
Yeah,
my
it's
brain,
hard to
they're not
take
how
it
my
because
brain thinks. Yeah,
yeah.
you know, it's and so maybe it's playing Gustav Holst versus playing, I don't know, ACDC. There's my band that is. I'm trying to think of, whatever's culturally relevant to you. And I think that's what it is trying to get people to play outside their box. And maybe, I don't know, Ricardo, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe trying to find a way to tie the two together but at the same time, giving the kids more of what they want to try to tie them to the things that you want. Cause I think that's that whole thing that I always talk about is like, we as teachers are up here and the kids are down here, and we're trying to make this happen so that we're all in the same place.
So
Could
many
I be?
thoughts. I have
I
so many
know I've
thoughts
got
about that statement. Um, so I've the kids play mariachi, but are not excited about it as they are with the corridors. Yes, kids want to play pop music instead of
Oh, I
classical
get it. I
music.
get it. I see. It's like that whole thing. It's like the things that they want to do what we were talking about versus doing the mariachi ensemble. I think
Ah,
that's the same. And I think that goes back to like the same thing of us saying, what happens if my kids in my band class only want to play the music in here, but they don't want to play the pop music that I want to play for the pops concert. I don't know. Am
yeah.
I on the right
No,
idea?
and that makes sense. And Ricardo, please, please, please. I think they have all my contact info. Let's chat. I really feel as though a deeper dive into this, we could map some stuff out. But a couple of things that you said, and I love the title of this podcast, Culture Before Content. And in your last thing, you said that meeting kids where they are while bringing them where they go. I think one of the problems is in music education that we get so caught up in exposing our students to other things and what we feel is correct, but we often do it at the expense of their own culture, interests, and backgrounds. The other thing that I often tell people is we say, let's meet them where they are and bring them where they want to go. I would like to strip that down even further. Let's sit where they are. So if they're telling you they like the C word, I forget what you said, corridors,
Corridos. It's like a
corridos. Okay, I'm not
yeah.
Spanish. What happens there? What happens if you spend time there? Or you find ways to balance what they're truly interested in and then bring back the mariachi. So I really think there's some teeth here, Ricardo, or yeah, Ricardo, that we could talk about if they are truly interested in pop, and if it's you don't know how to get them there, if it's looking for resources, or maybe you don't feel like it's appropriate. Let's talk further about this off air. I would
Well,
love to connect.
I think, Ricardo is somebody I actually know. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, I think what I'm trying to say and like what I'm trying to figure out here is we're always trying to tie things. Like there's the things that we need to do from our school. From like, I understand now what he said. The curriculum needs to tie to this. And I think it's just like band, like, I'm new to my school this year. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to function my own self as if I've been there for 10 years, because
Yeah.
it isn't going to work. I have to give a little bit of me to get a little bit of them, to give a little bit of me to get a little bit of them. And I think that maybe where we're at in terms of those aspects. But I do want to shift a little bit here, because
Okay.
this goes back to the picture sitting at the piano with the I think it's the doll in the background. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is some of the things I want to talk to our audience about, because when I started my music production class, I'll be quite honest, I wanted to offer it. My own experience at it was like almost slim to none of offering the class that I wanted to offer. My technology for music is way up. I touch composition, I've music, all that stuff, but I didn't want to teach that. I wanted to start learning about DAWs. I want to start learning about, you said about writing your own beats. Well, that's where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk about some of the things, like what at Alabama State, what is some of the equipment that you have? Because I think that starts the conversation. Because what I struggled with when I started was, hey, what do I get? Where do I go? And it started out with a
Yeah.
little bit of sound trap in there, but maybe talk about the DAWs and talk about some of the equipment that you believe in or that you're using, or just some of that.
I'm a bare bones kind of guy. So like and because I understand a lot of people don't have the resources to go out and get the big stuff. So I always tell people, like for instance, in our computer lab, we have Mac computers, we have a MIDI controller keyboard, a 25 key at every station. Um, and we we have a license for Logic, which is one of the
Mm-hmm.
industry standards. But let's say you just have bare bones and you just want to start. I always point to people towards Soundtrap.
Mm-hmm.
There are free versions of it, but there's also, if you can get an account, you can get like 50 seats for a certain price. And then also another free version of that is another free version for music production is BandLab. Now,
Yep.
BandLab is a little bit more tricky because a lot of school districts block it. And in the background of BandLab, there is like also like a social media setting which creates problems, which I understand. So my go-tos would probably be Soundtrap for production, because with Soundtrap you can record. Yesterday I did a training for Music Will, and we introduced some Soundtrap things, and all I did was I showed them how to use loops. Like, so the assignment was either rewrite a verse for the Fresh Prince theme song or create a beat using 5 loops. One of the student groups figured out how to record themselves. So they had their instruments, and now they're in the back recording themselves. So with Soundtrap, you can record vocals, you can record instruments, you can produce using MIDI and the virtual instruments. You can record podcasts, you can do interviews. There's so much that you can do with a bare bones software such as Soundtrap. Another thing that I like to use is Moises. It's an AI, what they call it. Basically, if you drop a song, it's a splitter, audio splitter. So let's say I put a song in there and I just wanted to take out the vocals so I can have the background for karaoke or to perform with. It allows me to remove the vocals or remove the bass line and play along, or remove a stem splitter is what they call it. And
Yeah,
Moises.
and for our audience out there, it's MOISES. Because I know sometimes, like, sometimes I hear things and I'm like, oh yeah, so it's helpful to know. I want to go back to a little bit of what you talked about, because like I said, the whole thing, like, that the intro to this show was composed in about 5 minutes, because they gave me some samples of what they wanted to hear, and I'm like, can I write something really quick that's different? And I just got onto my school Soundtrap, and the whole intro for this show is Soundtrap.
It sounded familiar. I just didn't want to say anything.
Oh my God. The funny part is after I sent it to them, I somehow didn't save it. And then they needed it again. I had to go back through each one of the loops until
And find the ones that you
I had to find. It was just 4 loops, but you're right about the BandLab. The social media component can become problematic in a school, and so, like, if the kids use it and it's on their own dime, that's how I always kind of supported it. Yeah. And for the audience members out there, what I learned about Soundtrap is that there's curriculum. If you get the education version, there are lesson plans. There's all these things, and I'm not a spokesman for any company. I do not speak for Soundtrap. I don't speak for
Yeah.
BandLab. I literally speak from experience. And you can use Soundtrap in your band classroom. You can use it in your choir classroom. You can use it in general music. You can use it as a recording device. Oh, playing tests. That's one of my favorites. Hey, just
Yeah.
record your audition and send it to me on Soundtrap. That kids probably already know it, by the way. But the lessons in that Soundtrap are great, and that's how I learned about podcasting. Believe it or not,
Was through
was
Soundtrap.
because the pet was through Soundtrap and the podcast unit, and I got all shy about it. And the next thing I know, here we are.
Gotcha. So one more thing about that picture, the one with Gijo at the thing, and I wanted to drill this home, and I don't know that we've been direct with solutions, and I know a lot of us sometimes need solutions, but George, the student in this picture, is like the clearest example of what I talk about. He got to our school last January, and he was in my intro to music technology class. And the first day of class, he said, "Man, I got an album. I got music out." And I said, yeah, right. Okay, cool. I hear it all the time. I don't really pay attention to it. A couple months down the line, we were preparing for performance at the Association for Popular Music Education conference. And something was missing. I felt like I needed an artist. So I went to him and said, "Hey, you said you have music. Let me check it out." And I kid you not, his album, Diaries or Stories of My Diaries, on Spotify, phenomenal album. He has two songs that I believe are certifiable hits. One is called Dangerously in Love with You, D-I, he calls it Dilwy, Diwly, and Sign Off or Signals Off. But the music was phenomenal. He produced it, he recorded it, he mixed it, he did everything on it. But the point that I'm trying to get across is he came to me with this knowledge. And had I never just asked about it, I would have never found out. And I just believe there are so many kids, even in our traditional ensembles, who have those skills that are doing things that it's critical that we just tap into it. If we never build out a modern band or never start a mariachi, I think just the idea of going to your students and saying, "Hey, what are you doing musically outside of band, choir, and orchestra?" would be a monumental step.
Oh, I think that would be phenomenal. And I will say this too, from this is the lessons I've learned from teaching music production class, is I found incredible kids who would have never taken band that are still playing bass guitar. They're playing guitar, and some of them are playing at the community college. They've graduated now, and they're playing in a jazz band. I mean, it literally connected the two worlds when I least knew about it. And like you said, you just discover, like, this one kid came to me. I think he was like 14 years old, and he was already producing. And he signed a contract in Hollywood with some production company. I have to check up on him, but that's what's probably in most schools. You've got all this. I'm telling you, there's talent, and these kids seek it out. And we, as educators, may just not be looking for it because we're in our little wheelhouse, so to speak.
Yep.
And so, you mentioned the APME, the Association for Popular Music Education. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I'm actually curious now.
So it's a nonprofit org that holds an annual conference. We go throughout the country. This year, we will be in the University of Miami. And it's a 3 to 4 day conference of just sessions on popular music education from all levels, like the work that's being done. There's a lot of work being done in the area of popular music education, and there's some intersection of technology. And that particular org and conference is what changed my career. That's where I learned about informal music learning and modern band and Little Kids Rock at the time. So this year we will be in Miami. In addition to the conference where on the popular music education, we do a student live showcase where we have bands come in from across the country, high school through college. They do performances. And then we also have the digital music showcase where we are accepting music from students like Gijo, who have music that's fully out and released, and we showcase their music throughout the conference. We create like a little mixtape that we blast out, and then throughout the conference, we play it in every room and have it playing in the meeting room. So it's a great conference. It's a great group of educators who realize that although music education is great, we could be doing more. The whole and effect, not or, and.
Yeah, and to our listeners out there, because, well, I guess to our viewers too, it's Popular Music Education, all one word. I of course looked it up while we are talking about it. So it's
Yeah.
popularmusiceducation.org.
Yep.
And like I said, I am one of those people that just takes a resource and I put it and I save it and I go look it up. But I dream of being able to go to everything in the world. I wish like I could go to like conferences every week, and I think it would be quite amazing. Um, and so to talk about any of the other things like any of the DAWs or any other equipment that you think would be great for any music program. Besides, I was looking at the keyboards, I was looking at the speaker. If you look in the background here, you can see my
Yeah.
speakers. I went to Guitar Center and they had them on sale. I'm like, I'll take those. And here's
Yeah.
my there's my.
So you have obviously your DAW. One second, let me just grab
No worries.
it. So obviously you have your DAWs, so I would recommend DAWs for that. If you have a DAW, you will need what they call an audio interface. My go-to is the Focusrite Scarlett. You can get
Yep.
one for maybe like right around $200. And quick music technology lessons. Your audio interface is how your music or your audio, your microphone, your guitar communicates with your computer. It's all USB connected. Um, any type of MIDI controller is fine. I don't have a particular brand or preference.
Mhm.
Akai makes some great MIDI controllers. Like if you look here, I have this 25 key MIDI controller under $100. It fits. It's a small one that we can just work on the computer. Microphones. If you want just and you're just doing quick projects, SM57, SM58, dynamic microphones, industry standard microphones. I was at yesterday. I literally just got back from New Orleans. And we went out yesterday and was watching this live band, and they were using SM57s. If you wanted to just go a little bit better studio grade, a condenser microphone, I don't have a particular brand in mind. Shure is always a good option. But my advice for anybody, just start small, start somewhere. You're not going to master all the technology, and you don't have to be a master of all technology. Find one or two tools that you can learn efficiently and quickly, and build out your curriculum from there. So if all you had was a computer, Soundtrap, and a MIDI controller, you can do damage.
And I'll talk to the music educators out there, because I know like most students have either an iPad or a Chromebook.
Yes.
The Chromebooks are great for running Soundtrap, and so
Yep.
and the kids, I was thinking about if I had to start a course again, and all the kids had Chromebooks, I would simply just buy a subscription to Soundtrap, and like you said, the software does have like the little keyboards built in, but you can always, like you said, just buy any MIDI controller, and then to band directors out there in the world, getting something to plug into is great. The Focusrite Scarlett is great. I think, and as I say, you probably all have friends out there who have knowledge and bias towards what the things that they work. And I guarantee you, whatever your friends use, it works. And so, I just think we all need to have those things. Like, I just think every band director should have like a microphone, and all the things that connect, because you can actually run a lot of your band things from, like, I was looking to record something the other day. I'm like, I was trying to be a bass player, and all I had was like, wait, my harmony director. I'll just plug my harmony director in, and that's all it was literally all I needed.
Yeah, and if you're running a Mac, if you're Mac based, GarageBand is also another phenomenal free tool that comes on every Mac. Matter of fact, I got an iPad because of one day during my Red Day White Day project. One of my students, Malik Lewis, he was making beats on his iPad, and he played it for me, and I was like, man, this is radio ready right now. And it's there. So GarageBand is also another great tool. The only problem with GarageBand is that it's only on Macs.
Yep. And so that's some of those things. I'm laughing. A lot of our previous guests are popping up here. We got Craig Gustafson, we got Gordon Williford, but Gordon is also a DJ. And so, like, these are like the people that I go to, because like to all you directors out there, ask questions. People have great ideas and advice, and all you can do is learn from. And here's Barbara, who I don't
Thank you,
know,
Barbara.
I have no idea how I got here. You just popped up on my phone, and I'm glad you did. I love this. Thank you. Well, thank you, Barbara. We appreciate that, because that's, I think, the connection to this is, I think this is the most non-band podcast on culture before content that we have. And I want to say this isn't necessarily a band thing, because I was going to talk about the culture side of this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit. Culture is, to me, is two things. There's the culture, and it's sometimes like who we are as a person, what my personal culture is. And so when I talked about culture before content, I was not speaking about my personal culture. I'm speaking more about what my culture of my classroom is. Just like you have the culture at Alabama State, and you have the culture, I have the culture at my school, and I have the culture of private lessons. That's what I'm speaking about. And that's where I think success comes from, is you define your culture, you create a belief in that culture, and ultimately success happens. So that's kind of like, just wanted to frame your thought around that.
No, that's good. And culture happens in two ways. Like you said, one, it's culture that you build, but also it's the culture that's coming in our classrooms. And I think so many times we forget about the culture of the people coming in our classroom that helps you to build that classroom culture, those standards.
Yep. Well, what I wanted to get into was, it's really about the connection, and connecting to students, connecting to other music educators, connecting to, just connection to everything and everybody. And I just think it's super fascinating that what you do, like, I'm looking at the instruments you have in your background. I see the guitars back there. You automatically pull up a little 25 keyboard. That's what I'm saying. Your culture is amazing. And that's how I've learned to do all these things. But how can we as music educators, what do we want to do if we've heard this podcast and like, wow, I'd really like to start I think I would like to start a class about this, or even not just start a class. Where can I get more information on just becoming this person? Where can I find more access to this music technology?
Music technology, popular music education. Obviously, Association for Popular Music Education is a great resource, great stop. Music Will is, to me, is the top of the food chain when it comes to learning about modern band and how to incorporate that into your class. This may sound counterintuitive, but there are a lot of resources, and my brain can't think of like exact spots right now, but there are a lot of resources like on Facebook, on YouTube, that share ideas on incorporating technology. Like, for instance, I think it's like I Teach Technology is a group on Facebook where they're constantly posting about technology. My guy Heath, he has a website, and I can't remember all of these things. If you would let me, I wouldn't mind sharing like a top 10 cheat list on where to learn about technology and popular music education with you and your audience.
I'll give you a hint, or not a hint. That's the wrong word. It's words. But after the show, if like, here's my thing. It's like doing an interview. So I do this interview for this job, and then I go home and I'm like, well, here are the top 100 things I should have said. And I said none of them. But you can go back to the stream on Facebook or on YouTube, and you can post all of those things.
Excellent.
So like, that's, I always laugh, because like, I don't join the YouTube while I'm talking, because otherwise Lord knows I'll be distracted after I do that. But you could, if you think of something, you can always pop it on the YouTube link, and then you can always, or on the Facebook link on one of the other, and we'll all post it everywhere. But then it goes back to like the end of the show, which we're not doing now. This is not the end of the show. Is we can get in contact with you, and people can reach out to you, because that's the whole thing, is like, what has this show done? What has the culture of the show done? It's creating a connection about all these music educators, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And that's where I learned from. I've learned from probably every single person that's posted on this. I've learned from Ricardo. I've learned from Greg. I've learned from Gordon. I'll learn from Barbara if you let me, Barbara. I'm just kidding. But yeah, and that's what I was thinking. The other thing too is bigger words, is that there's the music industry, and how many careers in the music industry are out there that we're not, as we could get the kids younger. How much of what you do could service the music industry, pointing kids to careers that are out there?
Oh gosh, I look at this as a musical ecosystem. I went to a conference last May, and I heard one of the speakers. They said there are 50 jobs in music that involve music that have nothing to do with playing or creating anything. So it's like, one of the things that we're doing in our pop ensemble is, and again, tapping into the students. I have a student that ended up in the class because she thought it was another class, but she had videographer skills. So for the semester,
Mm.
she recorded the whole class, all the classes, all the rehearsals, and she was in charge of editing it. Next semester, one of the things I'm going to promote is having a recording engineer in all of my performance classes so they can always record. So I'm writing about this right now. So that's why I lit up a bunch about what's going on. So just thinking about and learning about um other professions in music, and then creating a musical ecosystem around your program is another tremendous option.
You want to hear my this is probably a hot take. I haven't done a hot take in a while, Patrick,
Okay,
but
that's
here come you ready for a hot take?
that.
Music educators are terrible mixers when it comes to when it comes to recording and then redoing the levels. And also the mix coming into the hall. Music teachers are also horrible. We kind of get biased to the sounds that we like and not to necessarily what the audience likes. And I will say this out there, audience, go ask your students tomorrow, unless you have spring break, a little envious on that one. You might have these kids already in your
In
classes and have no idea. But I was just you already hit the nail on the head. You talked about microphones. The kids might know more about microphones than you do. By the way, my students at my last school told me what microphone to buy, also Patrick, but they instantly told me, and I bought it. And they were right. They knew more about this, from the get go. But I really feel I saw a comment there about talking, wish music technology was more widespread. 100%. That is like truly my belief as well. But I always think about this. There's probably all of you out there, a local studio that's out there that is nearby. Go visit. You would be shocked what you learn by visiting a music studio. My whole belief was when I worked for Disney is they put us in a studio in Hollywood, and I learned about an entire world I had no clue, and that's where my interest came. It was that trip to the studio and recording. But there's the comment: I wish music technology was more widespread in public education. I'm fortunate to have been by Shane. I'm an engineer till this day. I love that, and I never would have been exposed to it if it weren't for him.
One of my students, he was in my general music class with Xavier, and he just showed an interest in music production. So I showed him what I knew. At the time, I owned a studio up the road, so we brought him in a couple times. I think we like traded some gear at one point, but it all starts with just exploring and asking questions. And to your point a second ago, when you asked about how to get involved with more music tech, more popular music education, the other thing that as educators we have to do, we have to become comfortable with not knowing,
Mm.
and be willing to admit that we don't know something. Again, to your point, there is a student possibly in that class that we can learn from, and that's one of the things that I pride myself in being, is a lifelong learner, and tapping into the interest. Like I am a horrible guitar player, horrible. I can't I cannot hold chords or nothing, but I would welcome a guitar player in my class because I know what sounds good and what's not. I know when you're playing the wrong chords in a heartbeat, and learn from them as best as possible. So don't be afraid of not being the expert and asking questions, because that's when real learning can happen.
I come from a family of guitar players. I'm not that person. I can do A minor. I think A
Yeah,
minor is the only one that I can do because it involves a whole whopping string.
yeah.
But here's, as it's already, we're already hitting like almost an hour in the show. So we probably should think about closing shop. But I think this is probably one of those fascinating podcasts in terms of trying to change the mindset that we all have. We can all teach more than band. We can all teach more than orchestra, choir. We can do, there's all these things out there. And I think you are correct. Like I literally will say this, the older I get, the less I know. And teaching music production for me personally, when it started 4 years ago, I didn't know anything. And I just dived in, and I knew I was going to struggle. Like literally, I think the first thing that popped in my mind, I'll tell you, audience, was, oh my God, how do you control these kids? They just threw the kids in that class. And the funny thing is, once we created a culture and we created a connection, I started to learn from them, and we started to connect, and we started to form a relationship that still exists to this
Yep.
day. So I encourage everyone to embrace. I don't know if that's the right word. Embrace your weaknesses. Embrace what you don't know, because
Yeah.
all you're going to get from it is more knowledge. So, and I always tell everyone at the end of the show that kind of those final thoughts, or just those things out there. But maybe you could end today with what is on your mind for what the things that we talked today about, whether it's culture, whether it's technology, whether about what's for dinner. I'm kidding.
No,
Although I
no.
always love dinner.
I don't think I love the conversation. Like you're a great conversationalist. I'm not sure that I articulated everything that was in the brain, but if I had to sum it up in one, it would be get to know your students musically and leave room for other ways to make music. I think musicianship isn't only about reading the 5 lines in the 4 spaces and Western classical music. The best musicians I know do not know a B flat from a flat tire. And there are so many of those students in our school if we can just come down a little bit and meet them where they are. That would be
That
the thought.
is amazing. And I love this show. I think, what are we in? We're on episode 89, which is probably episode 99 after all the extra things we do. But Gordon says, great podcast. Thank you,
Thank you,
Shane.
Gordon.
Yeah, but let's talk about creating that connection, because I think let's talk about all the things that you have to offer, because you said that we could share some of your socials. So let's share some of your socials out there. So I know that you have an Instagram and a TikTok, and an email. So but your email popped up first. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to spell. So Colquhoun is super easy to say, not easy to spell. So for you out there, it's Colquhoun.shane@gmail.com. Spelled, are you ready? COLQUHOUN.Shane. I'm gonna let y'all spell that one at gmail.com. So it's Colquhoun, COLQUHOUN. I've learned to spell in threes. It helps. .Shane@gmail.com.
I would say it was an interesting cadence. I've never heard my name spelled that way.
Oh yeah, try somebody taught me that a few years ago, and it's because my last name. I always thought my last name, because I always said DUARTE. They're like, no, DUARTE. And no one ever misspells it. And then we also have your Instagram and TikTok, which is @music_and_ed, or is it music and dead? I don't know. It's MUSIC and
Music
sorry, I have a little bit of humor. MUSICANDED. That's both Instagram and TikTok. And your Facebook is, and we're Facebook friends. This is great, because I finally get to meet some of my Facebook friends at Shane.Colquhoun, COLQHOUN.10. So it's ShaneColquhoun.10, and that's your Facebook things. But oh my gosh,
can I make one more plug?
Oh, you can make all the plugs in the world.
Yeah. Also, I'm the chair for the Council of Innovation. So follow us, our NAFME Council of Innovations Facebook page. And then also I have a book that's out. It's called The Producers of Pop. So basically, it is a book that breaks down the role of the producer. It comes with worksheets that, like, for instance, just a biographical information on Quincy Jones, Dr. Dre, that's ready to go. And then also I have ideas for curriculum and then cross-curricular activities. So for instance, if producer A makes $700 producing this track and then works at the studio and makes $20 an hour, and he works for 20 hours, if his manager gets 20%, how much money does his manager get? So it has built-in worksheets like that, and it's available at F Flat Books, and I will tag that as well when I drop some comments of my favorite resources. So the Producers of Pop, if you Google it, it pops right up. And I am working on another project that just turned in this week that I'm very excited about. I can't talk about it much, but I will say that in this next project, I talk about the how. Like it's interesting that we can do modern band, we can do tech, but I talk about the how from the perspective of us as music educators. What do we need to do up here and in training in order to do some of these more innovative ideas? So I'm very excited about that to be coming up very soon.
Oh, and if I failed to mention it, the website for you is musicanded.com. I know I said the first part, but it is go to his website, email him. You are amazing, my friend. I feel like we got to like 2% of all the, like, this is every week. I feel like I get to 2% of all the things, and then it's like it's just like an interview. As soon as I get off this podcast, I'm gonna have 100 questions that I wished I would have asked.
And I love talking. So if you ever have a down week and want me to come back on and we run through those questions, just give me at least a week's notice, and I'm here.
Well, now that we're Facebook friends and we know each other, this could be amazing. Well, Dr. Colquhoun, thank you so much for being on the show today. You did give some great advice, and I appreciate everything. And your passion is just amazing.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So thank you. Well, folks, that was awesome. I really feel like I'm gonna go back and watch this podcast just to write down all the things that I learned today. But I just wanted to say thank you for spending your part of your day with us. You know, it's a Sunday. It's been a great one. And as we wrap up, please share this episode. As we found out today, somebody just popped in because that popped up on their feed. And now we're about to find out that you can find all the podcasts and go back and watch them. And again, this episode with all the others can be available and is available at musicforall.org/podcast. And remember, you can always email me. You can find me at david.duarte@me.com. I usually answer, usually on weekends. And I also have a resource page, davidduarte.org. And that's kind of like my admin brain, a lot of my former performances, anything you want to know. But go there. If there's anything, it's free. I got my student teacher handbook that I created. It's fun. All right. And again, thank you to Music for All for supporting the show and helping us continue these important conversations. That was fun today. But again, I'm David Duarte. Thank you for being a part of our culture today. And I look forward to seeing you next time.